Put that on. Good evening, members, officers. Good evening, members, officers, visitors and members of the public. I'm Councillor Mike Baldock and I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. The meeting may be recorded and proceedings will be conducted in accordance with the Council's constitution, including procedural rules which are available on the Council's website. I've got to say that following the publication of the agenda, Councillor Anne Kavanagh has filled the vacant seat. Item 1. There's no emergency evacuation procedure. There's no planned evacuation drill this evening, and accordingly, if the alarm sounds, it is to be treated as a genuine need to evacuate. There are emergency exits over there where it says fire exit and opposite the lifts. Please do not use the lifts. On exiting, you will be directed to the assembly point, and it is important that you remain there and do not return to the building until I have announced that it is safe to do so. If anyone present will need assistance in evacuating, could you please inform me now so that we can make the necessary arrangements to assist you? Members must consider each application and everything that is said in a meeting concerning the application and make their decision based solely on their planning judgment of the information available to them. Following a decision by members, delegated authority is given to the planning officer to issue the decision notice. Planning permission is not granted or refused until the issue of that decision notice. Any member of the council who is not a member of a planning committee may attend as a visiting member and may speak having given prior notification. Such visiting members may of course include ward members, and whilst visiting members can speak on an application, they are not permitted to vote. Any member acting as a substitute on the planning committee must have undertaken appropriate training before doing so. Members must remain in the meeting for the whole time that each item is being debated and should not vote on that item unless they have done so. I would now like to welcome our public speakers and remind you that you have 30 seconds to speak and an audible warning of time will be given 3 minutes to speak, and an audible warning of time will be given when there are 30 seconds remaining.
Chairman, a point of order. You did say speakers had 30 seconds to speak.
3 minutes. Right, I'll just read that bit again. I would now like to welcome our public speakers and remind you that you have 3 minutes to speak and an audible warning of time. Oh, good that you pay attention to me. Yeah. Will be given when there are 30 seconds remaining. If the meeting is deferred to conduct a site meeting, you may speak both at this meeting and at the site meeting and when it comes back to the planning committee. Before we start this evening's meeting, I've been reading some stuff online, mainly from the Planning Advisory Service. One of the things it says is that it is good practice that when the committee defers an item, only members who were there at the deferral should vote when it comes back. The other bit of good practice is that if there is a site visit, only members who attend the site visit should vote on that item. Now, that is not part of our constitution, but as it has been brought to my attention, I will be raising that and seeing if that is a route that councillors wish to take in the future. There is some sense to it. It is considered best practice. I can see reasons that people wouldn't want it, but I'm laying it on the table. It's something we'll discuss in future because it's exciting, isn't it? Right. Item 2, apologies for absence and substitutes.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies from Councillor Andy Booth, Councillor Hayden Braun, his substitute is Councillor Angela Harrison, Councillor Kieran Golding, his substitute is Councillor Shelley Cheeseman, Councillor Claire Martin, her substitute is Councillor Charles Gibson, and Councillor Richard Palmer, his substitute is Councillor Derek Carnell. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 3, the minutes. Approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of January 2025, minutes 550 to 558. Are they okay? Thank you. You haven't missed much. Do you also want me to do the planning working group minutes? Right. The minutes of the planning working group held on the 7th of January 2025. For those of us that were there, are we agreed they are correct and accurate minutes?
Agreed.
Yep, thank you. And the minutes of the meeting held on the site meeting held on Friday the 10th of January 2025. Are we agreed these are a correct minutes?
Agreed.
Thank you. Sorry, Chair. Councillor Watson.
I do apologise, Chairman. On the minutes for the meeting for the site visit on the Tuesday for Brogdale, it is in the minutes that Councillor Winkless was not there, and I can assure you he was, because he took me there. So, thank you, Chairman. And for the minutes for the second site visit, I did give my apologies for both site meetings.
Oh, we have actually just approved these minutes, Councillor Watson. Right. Right. Reopening the minutes. Can we agree that we include Tony Winkles as being present? I know he was there. We can also correct Anne Kavanagh's name. And what was the other bit, Councillor Watson?
On the second site visit, I gave my apologies for both site meetings, I'm down to one.
That's on the 10th.
Yes, Chairman. Thank you. And that was the site visit at East Church.
Right. With those amendments, are we agreed with both sets of minutes? Thank you. Item 4, to invite members' declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests and disclosable non-pecuniary interests. I'd like to remind the meeting that where it is possible, a fair-minded and informed observer, having considered the facts, would conclude that there was a real possibility that a member might be predetermined or biased on any agenda item. The member should declare this possibility and then leave the room whilst that item is considered. Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Chair. I have a non-pecuniary interest in item 10. I spoke and voted on this at Faversham Town Council's planning meeting, so I will represent the Town Council's view, but will not speak in the debate or vote on it in this council. Thank you.
So you will be speaking as a town councillor?
Correct.
Thank you. Anybody else? Nope. Good. Okay. Part 5. Reports for the planning committee to decide. We've approved the minutes. Excellent. Right, we're going to take items 2 and 3 first, as we're not entirely sure that all the speakers have arrived yet. So, deferred item 2, 24/502-378/full, 34 Key Street. Are we taking both of these together? Yep. And deferred item 3, 25/502-460/full, 34 Key Street. Can I ask the officer to give any updates?
Excuse me one moment. The only update was you previously asked for clarification on the siting of the development as it's been built in comparison to the original permission. And if you could bear with me one moment. Yeah. On the left here, I have let's just check the cursor's working. This is the plan showing the original development prior to its demolition. And the second plan here is the original permission that was granted. And this is the current plan that's been submitted in terms of the changes in height. And that was not planned. But looking at these, it is on the same site in my view.
Can you just clarify, on that larger
The latest plan.
larger diagram right to the right,
Yes.
the outline seems to conveniently bump out a bit. Is that actually a true representation of what's on the ground, of the ownership? Because that does not look like a straight line. When you go from the south,
Yep.
it is the south,
So it's this.
it bumps out, doesn't it?
That area there.
No, down a bit.
Down a bit. Oh, I see. Hold on.
Golden shot.
There.
Yeah. That looks very peculiar.
Let me just zoom in on the. See if I can zoom in on this. Control plus.
Give it a bit more room to.
Working.
Not the first one.
I'll do it that way. Yeah. Okay, so there is a slight indent here.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And on the very first one,
I will just. Yeah, there is it's a matter of judgment, I would say. There is certainly an indent there, and there's an indent there.
And on the first one, on the far left?
On the far left. Yeah, there is a small indent on both of those.
It's somewhat lesser, and on the second one it actually goes through the building. Given what we're talking about, it seems to be quite relevant. We're saying it's built on the site of the original dwelling, and yet the three diagrams show an ever-increasing bend that would allow a larger or a slightly wider building to be put there. So I think that is something that members might like to bear in mind. Anything else?
There's no further update beyond the previous statements made.
Okay, then I'll ask Shazli Hafiz, the applicant, to come down. We're doing both applications, so you will get 6 minutes if you require it. You press the large button in the middle and you'll get 6 minutes from... No. Just there, sorry. You get 6 minutes and then you get a 30-second warning. Yeah.
Right, good evening. The 3 points I'd like to make with regards to the height application is as such. The heights have been measured midway through during construction. The site has been dug up and is incomplete. The landscaping is yet to be completed. We have 30 centimetres of hardcore, followed by 10 centimetres of sand, followed by 10 centimetres of the soil still to be added back to the existing ground level. If you add these measurements back to the ground height, then we are on target for the correct build height. When the site meeting was conducted, we demonstrated to the committee members who attended how much we had dug down, and this was evident in comparison to the ground level of our neighbours. Point number 2, even if these figures were assumed to be correct, they are well within acceptable tolerances, and when building large structures, it is common for there to be such variances. And point number 3, none of these heights will negatively affect the light of any of the neighbours who are more than 8 to 10 metres away. The one and only window that is nearby is that of Pine Lodge Care Home, but that window is of a landing, a non-habitable room, and the light impact will be negligible. In response to the points made about the location, again, when we were on site, we had an email drafted by our architect stating that it has been built on the correct site, and we also demonstrated that if you look at the building before it was knocked down and how it is now, they are in exactly the same position, and in fact at that time Pine Care Home was overhanging the existing old building that was there. Yeah, sure. As far as the energy reduction is concerned, just 2 points I'd like to make. To give you some background, we purchased a property in 2020 with approved planning. We immediately arranged to get an energy company to help us to achieve the 50% energy reduction, which they successfully did using solar panels. Then an application was put in for the addition of dormers into the roof structure, and this application was subsequently approved by the council. Unfortunately, the unforeseen negative outcome of this was that the roof structure can no longer accommodate sufficient photovoltaic panels in order to generate the 50% energy reduction that was originally intended. The energy company and the council's own consultants have not been able to come up with an alternative method of achieving this reduction. This is why we have asked for the condition to be amended. I would like to remind the committee members that the application for this amendment of this condition was submitted in February 2022, and so this matter has been going on for the past 3 years. My second point was that both the Planning Inspectorate and the Secretary of State have stated that the 50% energy reduction is not supported by local or national policy. The previous applications that have been taken to appeal have been approved. A 50% reduction goes beyond national policy DM19 and is as such not justified. As it stands, a 25% reduction in dwelling emission rate will still result in a reduction in the emission rates set by the 2013 Building Control Regulations. Thank you.
Thank you. You can. Okay, I'll move you. We'll take vote first on 378, which is the increase in height, and then we will vote. Secondly, we will vote on the gas emissions. Right, but I'll move the officer's recommendations. Thank you. Anybody wish to speak? Councillor Winklis.
Thank you, Chair. In my usual mode, if I could have a certain picture put up with the adjacent wall where there's guttering very close to the wall, along that wall there, adjacent to that house. I was on the site meeting, as you know. That does seem very, very close to me. Any building that is built like that is virtually touching that wall with a gutter doesn't really seem right to me. That is a grave concern of mine on that. But I will listen to the rest of the debate as usual before I make my final mind up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Winklis. That is why I drew attention to the wobbly line, shall we say, in the planning application, because if that is beyond what was originally there, and if you look at the map in your agenda items, it is a straight line, not a wobbly line. It seems to bear very directly on this, because even a foot would make a difference to the overhang. Councillor Thompson.
For me, the site visit brought up the fact that the levels in height, the applicant just said there, we're building up, are actually taken from the original ground level, and that's the idea of it. When we spoke about the original ground level, we were told it had been built up, but it hadn't. The original ground level was still there, so it should have been dug down. That's the first point. The second point I'd like to make is about the 50%. The building currently, in its current state, I don't know who's in control of the building regulations, but the insulation is wholly inadequate throughout the whole building when I had a look. So I can't see that giving a dispensation for something to reduce that 50% will be beneficial when the building won't actually comply as it is. The cavity wall finishings weren't correct. The insulation wasn't brought against the inside walls. There was no taping. There was no restraining. So all of that means that the cavity insulation won't actually work. So I think that needs to be brought up. And I'm very concerned about the fact that basically we weren't told the truth about the ground levels. So therefore the building is higher than it's meant to be. And I think some of the neighbours have got a fair point about that. The original building was just under a metre lower than that as well. So therefore it makes it considerably higher than the original building that was demolished.
Great, thank you. Councillor Hunt.
Thanks. I can understand the concern with the boundary. It does seem a bit strange. It sort of kicks out at the point that it does come across into the other property. But we have to go with the plan that we've got, and if it's showing the boundary does that and that it's within the site, that's what we have to go by. And I know on those other plans, when you look at it, because it's a different scale, that blue line could be a foot just with that line when it's being drawn. So it's difficult to go by plan, but going by that larger plan there, even if it is wrong and the boundary actually isn't that, we have to go by this plan. And if the boundary is wrong, then it's a legal matter between each property owner and their boundary, not something that we can do at planning committee. I can see no problem with it. Yes, it is higher. That is what we're looking at. And as I said last time at the committee meeting, that we have to look at the difference between what was approved and what is there. And it's only that difference. Would it cause an impact or not? And although it is high and will probably impact the neighbouring property, it doesn't cause something that I think that we could refuse it on just for that amount. And with the energy efficiency, although it's the next one, again, something that's just been said there, that seems to be a building control issue if it's not being done as it should be. And it would be good to get the 50%, but as has been said, we've got no policy on that. And until we change that policy, as been said every time, we're not going to get anywhere with it, and we have lost that appeal. So everything that we've got here, I see no reason why it shouldn't be going ahead.
Thank you. On the boundary, I would point out that the boundary diagram that we've got to work from on page 80 and page 105 is a straight line. And I think it's really dubious when we've been asked to make decisions with wobbly lines and straight lines. What are we actually, what is it we're giving permission for? Is it what's in here? Is it one of those three? Because they're all different. Can we have clarity on what one we're actually giving permission for? What is the outline?
I think the key thing to consider here is it's a Section 73 application, so the boundary is fixed by the parent planning permission. So you can't, for a Section 73 application, you can't put a new red line in.
No, but we can agree where the top can go.
How do you mean with?
Well, it's gone higher. If we feel that it's gone higher, and that is imposing, then we could say that needs to go back to an original line, because then it might not be so imposing.
In terms of the height of the building?
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the consideration. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
So if it was, if the boundary was a foot in, and we were therefore giving permission for the extra foot, say, call it a metre, the extra metre to the correct boundary, and that was a foot in, that would potentially reduce the imposing impact of it.
Potentially, yeah, but I can't see anything here that sort of suggests it's anything like that extent. I mean, it all looks, as Mr. Martin pointed out, it's very, very close in terms of, when you're looking at the drawing and trying to work out what's going on. It's, I say it's within a sort of, it's a marginal difference, if anything. And the other point which Councillor Hunt made, which is absolutely right, is that matters of sort of boundary disputes and whether they, whether someone thinks a boundary is sort of theirs or somebody else's is a private matter.
But it's not a private matter when we are the ones making a decision.
It's a private matter in terms of boundary issues.
We need to know what the boundary is that we're giving permission for.
It's the boundary on the parent planning permission.
And what's that?
Which is, where's the description?
Oh, they made a change.
I think that was a further Section 73.
Yeah, that was. So it was this one here.
Yeah.
So it's that plan.
So it's the middle one.
Oh, it's the middle one now. Right.
Yep, always will have been, yeah.
Right. Councillor Kavanagh.
Regarding the overhang, it happened that my mother was in Pine Lodge and she died, 14 years ago. What they did is extended out to give ensuite bathrooms to those bedrooms along there. So I can concur that overhang must have happened by Pine Lodge. So it looks to me by the diagrams that the original building was already about there and Pine Lodge extended out. So although it looks awful now, I don't believe necessarily it is the fault of 34 Key Street. Maybe Pine Lodge wanted to extend by a certain amount and that's why they went so far. That should have been dealt with at the time, but it wasn't. Thank you.
Councillor Martin.
So I'll address the boundary issue first and foremost. I think this is all a matter of scale. The smaller we display those drawings, the straighter that line is going to generally appear. If we had it on A1, I'm sure it would be quite clear that it's got a delineation in it. It's the age old, isn't it, on that front? So I think that's a bit of a misnomer. In terms of the other application regarding this site on the 50%, I concur with Councillor Hunt, much as we would I would seriously adore being able to stick to it. I don't think we can, because we've lost far too many times on that already. I do wonder whether consideration was given to the thought of utilising a company called HEATA, HEATA, for reducing the energy running. That would involve the installation of a cloud server point within the boundary of the property, usually about the same size as a green BT box, and the excess heat from the generation of the from the servers that are in that cloud storage box are utilised to provide hot water and heating to the property. And depending on the size of unit you get there, you can essentially cover the entirety of the heating and hot water from that. So that's something for our guys to consider in future when people come back and say, I can't do it because I've put dormers in and can't use solar. But at this stage, I think we're well down the line. We're going to have to go with the officer recommendation.
One thing I would say for those of us that were on the site visit, the view from the gardens on the back, from back gardens on cherry fields, it was quite imposing, and that extra metre gives quite a depressing, imposing overlook. I think had they have stuck to the original amount, the impact of that would not have been so great. And I think that's one of the things. Is that the best photo we've got? I think that is one of the considerations that needs to be taken into account. In fact, I think it's the main consideration. Is the imposing impact on the people in Cherryfield of the extra metre. I think that if I don't like agreeing to things when we're not certain about the boundary of what we're agreeing. I think that is really uncomfortable. I accept this has already gone through with the original application, when it would therefore be a private matter, but we're looking at an extra metre on top. If that was to be in a foot, that I think would make a difference on the imposing structures for those residents of Cherryfields. So I think it does matter. I think there is a balance to be considered. I think it's unfortunate that not more people made the site visit so they could actually see the imposing impact. Ben, Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I couldn't make the actual site visit, but I did, on passing the site, stop and have a quick look round as much as I could without trespass. I can't remember from the original planning application when this came forward what the prescribed overall height that was agreed at that meeting was. However,
sorry, Councillor Clark, it didn't come here for the first one. There wasn't an objection at that height.
Oh right, okay. But I would suggest that architects these days, it doesn't seem that they can actually read a drawing properly, because it's not the first time in recent memory that we've had sites that have been built over height and they've had to come back for minor material amendments. But I would suggest that the correction in height should have been picked up by building control, and that wouldn't be something that we could consider here this evening. Thank you.
The application is about the height. It's a retrospective application for the extra height.
But that should have also been picked up by building control.
Okay, if there's nobody else, those in favour of the officer's recommendation regarding the height, please show. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those against, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that is carried. Those in favour of the officer's recommendation regarding the... I move the second application. Thank you. Those in favour of the application to reduce the dwelling emission rate from 50% to 25%, please show. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Those against? 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'll abstain on that one. Okay, so that's carried. Is Julian Moat here? Okay. We will go on to deferred item 4, which is 23/505/678/full land west of Warden Road, Eastchurch. Don't think we have an update on this one. Yes, we do. Right, there is not an update. That's the next one. Right. He's doing this one. Are you ready, Simon? Okay, then I'll ask for the officer update and outline and summary.
Thank you, Chair. There's no updates to this item. So the approximately 1.14 hectare site is an undeveloped parcel of land which is currently used for the grazing of horses, bounded by agricultural land to the north, west and south, and by residential development on the opposite side of Warden Road to the east. I'll just run you through the pictures that we showed last time very quickly. Photograph of Warden Road facing north, and a photograph of the site looking northeast, and a photograph of the site looking northwest. Planning permission is sought for the erection of 32 affordable rented residential dwellings, unit mix comprising 6 one-bedroom, 3 two-bedroom, 3 two-bedroom flats, 8 two-bedroom houses, and 15 three-bedroom houses. So that's 6 one-bedroom flats, 3 two-bed flats, 8 two-bedroom houses, and 15 three-bedroom houses. The application was initially reported to the Planning Committee on the 5th of December with the recommendation that permission be granted. The application was deferred for a planning working group site visit in order to consider the highways implications of the proposal in view of increased traffic, the location of the access and a previous accident in the locality. Members of the planning working group attended a site visit on the 10th of January, viewed the site and the highway along Warden Road, including the location of the proposed access. Last time the images of the materiality that I showed on my presentation inaccurately represented some of the colours, so the applicant has submitted some revised imagery, so I'll just take you through these. These are the different brick types and the weatherboard cladding. This is the Goldcrest type A and B housing. This is the Kite and Osprey type houses. This is the Bettany A and B type houses. That's actually coming up a bit of a different colour on that screen than it is on my one. I think still a bit of an issue with the representation of the colours. It's a darker green and a redder roof tile and a sort of browner brickwork. So I'm not sure what the issue is here.
These were the ones that were just miserable grey last time.
The miserable grey ones, I think, with a kite here. Again, if you can see my screen share, you can see that it's a different colour. It's not that yellow. It's sorry about that.
Which colour's correct?
I believe it's the colour that I've got on here.
We can ask the agent to address that when he speaks.
Okay. And this is the flatted block. Again, the colours are quite different on my screen. And this is an illustrative image of the street scene. The application remains recommended for approval as set out in the committee report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask Mr. Moat to apply, please? I think you know the score, so.
Yeah. Good evening, Chairman and members. My name is Julian Moat, Planning Director for Chartway Partnerships Group, and speak again as joint applicant with our registered provider partner Moat Homes. To recap, we have worked constructively with council officers and statutory consultees throughout the planning process to develop a high quality, 100% affordable rented housing scheme to meet pressing local housing needs in Eastchurch. The scheme will deliver 32 much needed new homes, all provided as locally affordable rented 10-year dwellings. A number of points were raised by committee members during the previous planning committee debate, and I would draw your attention to the following key points. Access. We propose a new site access on Warden Road in a location which has been demonstrated to be technically compliant and safe by our own transport experts, backed up by independent acceptance by the Highway Authority. Our access proposals will see the current 30-mile-an-hour speed limit being further extended along Warden Road, lowering traffic speeds for new and existing residents. In accordance with the NPPF, we highlight there are no planning grounds to withhold permission on highway-related matters. Materiality. Our proposals have been designed to incorporate a range of external materials to reflect local Eastchurch vernacular. What you've seen on the screen this evening is a combination of different varying facing bricks. So we'd have a red and a yellow supplemented with weatherboard cladding. The proposals are fitting for the local context, and as highlighted in the officer report, the council's urban design officer remains supportive of the scheme. Building heights. Our development includes a range of 2-storey houses and a 2.5-storey block of flats. We have looked carefully at ensuring that the proposed designs, including flat block, fit comfortably within the existing site topography. Energy strategy. Chartway and Moat remain wholly committed to delivering low energy and low carbon housing, ensuring that the homes will be energy efficient to run as locally affordable rented homes. The scheme includes air source heat pumps, PV panels and EV charging infrastructure designed to meet and indeed exceed current building regulations compliance. In summary, we've demonstrated that our proposals are acceptable in all technical and design respects and accord with planning policy established in the NPPF. As set out in the officer update before you this evening, we note that the 63-home Lower Road development on the western edge of Eastchurch has recently been allowed at appeal.
30 seconds.
A scheme where considerable weight was attributed to the delivery of affordable housing. Our proposals before you this evening realise significantly greater levels of affordable housing. In concluding, the development will materially contribute to the delivery of much needed affordable rented homes on the Isle of Sheppey, where there remains a historic lack of affordable housing delivery, and I encourage members to concur with the officer recommendation and grant planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I shall move the officer's recommendation. Thank you. Open to debate. Councillor Winklis. Well done. Get your hand down, Councillor Winklis. Can I ask Councillor Mike Brown, please? Do apologise, Councillor Brown. I think you know the score.
Am I on? Good evening, Chairman and members. I'd like to thank the members that did attend the site meeting on what was the coldest day of the year, and hope you saw the things that we are raising with you. Eastchurch Parish Council continues to object most strongly to this application because of the total unsuitability of the location for affordable housing. You'll be aware by now of the reasons for our objections, but I'll state again those which we deem to be the most important. The location is rural with an easy connection to the village by way of a fast road and a footpath too narrow for wheelchairs. The village already has problems with increased traffic, causing major problems. There's a very limited bus service, but this can only be accessed from the village. There are major problems with sewage, with several recent blockages and regular overload at the Hensbrook pumping site. Heavy rainfall constantly leads to flooded roads. The proposed block of flats will create a visible intrusion to the local landscape and will be totally out of place in a rural location. All public facilities such as GPs are stretched and unavailable locally. The only proper main access is via the already overstretched A2500 Lower Road, which will be stretched even further with the recent agreed huge housing developments in Minster and Eastchurch. The suggestion of access via Plough Road is ludicrous, given that for much of its length it's a single-lane country road with few passing places. As a caring parish, we are not opposed to affordable housing. We recognise the need for it on Sheppey, but a greenfield site, distant from amenities, is surely not viable and certainly not the best place for the proposed residents. There are a number of brownfield sites on the island far better placed, such as the large site in Westminster, all of which would offer better accommodation for those for whom the application wishes to house. The report mentions the recent appeal upheld for the 68 homes at the other end of Eastchurch. You quite rightly, as a committee, opposed this application and that went to appeal. And your wording was, the key ground of refusal related to encroachment of development and presence of built form and urbanisation in the open countryside, which would be detrimental to the character and appearance of the locality and to the setting of Eastchurch Village. I hope that your thoughts have not changed when dealing with this application. Eastchurch is now the only real village on Sheppey, steeped in history, and should not be continually developed, especially with the site unavailable. We hope that you'll support the parish and reject this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor No, who was speaking as a visiting member and a ward member.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I asked for a site visit for this application to highlight a concern that became evident within minutes of being there. The entrance to this site is in a bad location. It's on a poorly lit hill meters from a bend that you can't see around. It was a shame to see so few members of the committee attend because the issue was really well illustrated by having to call out the word car every 30 seconds or so. Even standing to the side of the road as a group, we were vulnerable. Now imagine putting 32 houses worth of people there. We're talking about an entrance lined with hedges on a hill on a poorly lit road. If even one person comes around that corner too fast, someone standing to the side is going to be in danger. How then can new residents expect to go to and from the very few shops safely? This last point was actually perfectly illustrated and mentioned by Councillor MacDonald because there was a resident in a wheelchair there. She actually openly challenged anyone to wheel her up that road to the shop, and it wasn't really something that could be done. There are plans to mitigate the issue by moving the 30-mile-per-hour speed limit just beyond the site, putting red pavement down to show that you need to slow down. This is definitely a step in the right direction, but it's very doubtful people will take heed. It's not a very visible area. I mean, how many of us have driven up Brielle Way to Sheerness, and how many of us remember to slow down at Bluetown? Now, that site is far better lit, much more open. The road is a lot more visible. This one isn't. So at the time of the site visit, there was no real answer as to how the entrance of the site would be made more visible. I mean, a reminder, this plan is showing it lined with hedges. Considering its location, I don't know that it can be more safe. So, keeping in mind that we were there during the off season, can anyone who attended that site truly say that they felt safe on that road? So what about the school run or the summer when the traffic gets worse? We're being asked to approve a development in a poor visibility area with a sticking plaster of a speed limit sign. I don't see it as being enough. I mean, yes, we do badly need affordable housing. It's certainly something that we can all agree on, but I'm really not seeing enough solutions here to quell concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Noy. I will pass the move the officer's recommendation. Thank you. So open for debate. Councillor Winkless, I believe you had your hand up first.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I am listening to some concerns about the road and the dangers to it, but the 30-mile-an-hour speed is going to be extended, and as the ward councillor just said, there's going to be some red markings in the road. That's obviously, they think psychologically that will slow people down. But we do need the affordable housing. I agree, it is a pleasant open space, but it's only 32 properties. And I think, looking at the picture and the diagram, I feel those 32 properties are well spaced. We need the affordable housing. I'm going to say this with a heavy heart as far as on the open spacing. So I don't see open spaces built on, but I think we're in a position with this one, or I'm in a position with this one, where I'm going to go with the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Councillor Kavanagh.
Thank you. I was on the site visit as well, which was quite useful. 100% affordable rented housing. Wow, don't we need a lot of that? The 30 mile per hour speed limit will really help. The road was quite quiet while we were there. I appreciate that's not always the case. It would also help the housing that's already the other side. It's not the open countryside that it could be, because there's already housing on the other side of the road. The fact that nearby Lower Road, the appeal has been allowed. I've read the report by the inspector. I don't think we have grounds to refuse it, because it will go straight to appeal, and I'm sure will then be allowed. And even though you struggled, Simon, with the colours, I quite like the pastel shades, so thank you.
Okay, can we just have clarity? The 30-mile-an-hour sign is conditioned as far as it can be?
Sorry, Chair, the condition.
The 30-mile-an-hour sign was being talked about.
That's a plan of the 30-mile-an-hour zone, so going quiet. So we can tighten up the condition the condition requires the applicant to progress a traffic regulation order for a speed restriction on Warden Road. So the detail of that will all come out through that application to the Highways Authority.
And if that isn't successful, is that if the highways KCC decide it can't be safely put in?
So the application shall be made to progress a traffic regulation order for a speed restriction, and a scheme shall be implemented in accordance with the outcome of the application prior to the occupation of any of the dwellings hereby approved. So I'm not quite sure exactly the procedure for a traffic regulation order, but we can have another look at that, and I could speak to the Highways Authority.
Well, it can fail if for whatever reason the TRO is unsuccessful. What would then be the position? Because the applicant, can try. But if KCC decide actually it's not suitable for a 30, what position are we in? Will they be able to go ahead and is the condition only that they try or that they actually succeed in providing this 30-mile-an-hour limit?
At the moment, the way it's worded is that they apply. I mean, I could speak to the Highways Authority to understand how the process works.
Can we put in a requirement that they succeed?
I can shout, I haven't got a microphone.
Oh no, the people at home won't pick that up.
It's under a separate regime, so you can't condition that it will definitely succeed. But presumably Highways have seen this drawing as part of the application and have commented. If they had a problem with it, they would have presumably raised a concern at that stage.
What Kent Highways do at one point and what they do 6 months down the line, it's not necessarily the same thing. Okay. So the requirement is to try. There was a letter from CPRE which did raise some issues. People are talking about, don't we need 100% affordable housing? That is providing things go the right way. CPRE have pointed out that it's not actually guaranteed. Are we able to? I imagine if we try and guarantee that they provide this level of affordable housing, they cease to be able to qualify for a grant or something.
The Homes England grant would be dependent upon them delivering the affordable housing. It's a mixture of recycled grant and new grant. So Moat Housing already have some of that grant sort of in their coffers, if you like. But we have a letter of comfort from Moat Housing, and unfortunately we can't secure it for a Section 106 or through a condition because of the terms of the Homes England grant funding. But there's a reputational issue here, and Moat are a registered provider of affordable housing, and it wouldn't be in their interests to not deliver reputationally in this case. But yeah, there is a sort of degree of trust on the part of the local authority.
Okay, we'll clear that up. Councillor Marchington.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I didn't go to the site visit because the road is very well known to me. I do a lot of work for the drilling rig firms that work down there. I've been for over 40 years. I've been working and maintaining farm equipment down along that road. But I would like to bring to your attention that that road, Plough Lane, is quite busy, but it's the best road I've ever been on for good behaviour between both sides going down it. You beat the horses. They'll fall in nice and tight, and everyone's used to just let them go past, and everyone's always giving the way. It's a very, very polite road, and it actually feels safe going down. And I take cranes down there and telehandlers and drag big generators down there, So, and you're always looking out for the unknown when you're off a site, So I'd like to put that point that they're well used to each other, and they've had several generations to get used to each other on that road, and they are well behaved, and I'll take that off to everyone down there. I'll take the point that the 30 mile an hour could be extended. You can always add a few improvements, but it is you feel safe going down there. You don't feel you're going to hurt anyone, and everyone seems to always acknowledge, and I'm quite proud of the little road as being part of it as well. Thank you.
And was that good behaviour observed by the boys carrying the dodgy stuff to be dumped?
I don't know anyway. I'll bring it back.
Councillor Jays.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Marchington must have been going down there on weekdays because weekends it's a racetrack in the summer. Some of the concerns we've heard about in the report from residents is the fact that there are going to be 3 4-block flats. This village is quite a historical village, very little development. A block of 3-storey flats is really not in keeping. We're asked to deliver housing in sustainable locations. There is no footpath out of this village. You cannot get anywhere else from East Church without walking in the road. That's not sustainable. There's going to be 15 less car parking spaces than our own SPD. That suggests to me that we know that future users, due to their social economic status, might have less vehicles per household. Therefore, we are dumping residents in a location that isn't sustainable, where they've either got to walk in the road, wait for the bus that comes so little. We all know, we've all sat here and said what a joke the bus services are in this part of Swale. I don't think this is a sustainable location, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Just going back to the design, is that a set design? Is that the design that's put forward? It's not any outline. It's fixed with the houses the way they are orientated. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, just like to point out again, orientation's really poor, and we need to bear a lot more attention to that when we design homes in a site. You know, there's a token gesture to solar, but in fact, with good orientation of those homes, they would all have solar. Roof design and orientation is key. So I think if Moat are listening, maybe they can redesign their next development with a bit more thought to that. We need to definitely take into account passive solar gain as well. And then we're obviously massively reducing tenants' costs and makes it a lot more sustainable. So that's all I'd like to say.
Okay. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. I think, first off, on the highways side, 5.9, our Highways Authority have said there is no objection, straight off the bat. So realistically, that's where we're at. It's a misnomer in that regard. We certainly need the affordable housing across the borough in all locations. There will be people on the housing register from Eastchurch who would quite like a house in Eastchurch. There will be people on the housing register from Warden who would quite like a property that end of the island. We know from what we see in terms of the applications, certainly back when it was the old version of Kent Home Choice and you could see how many applicants were on each property, that if you had one on the island come up, you'd have 300-400 people apply for it. If you had one in Sittingbourne, you'd be lucky to get 200, and if you had one in Faversham, you'd get 100. There is a clear need and demand, particularly on the island, for affordable housing. And given the decisions from the planning inspector regarding the nearby site, given the benefit that affordable housing will provide for the area, I think we're sort of well away going with the officer recommendation. Yes, I share the concerns around how sustainable is it in some regards, but not all persons who are in affordable or social housing are looking to be in a town centre location for work purposes. Some are actually looking to be outside in the countryside retiring, and depending on how Moat position these, whether they're for over 60s or whether they are regular stock, is a matter for themselves. But it is something that we do need, and we do have to bear in mind that this council has declared a affordable housing emergency as well. So I think we're there or thereabouts with the officer recommendation. The only other point I would make is the biodiversity is very, very loose within the report. So just a request to Moat that if they are going to install items such as Swift boxes, that they don't just put one on each dwelling, they try and actually put them together, as Swifts do live in colonies. So having one Swift box on a property won't get used, but if you put all 10 on one gable end, you actually might get them used.
Can we tighten the conditions to make sure that these efforts are effective?
Yes, we can amend the conditions to require the submission of further details of biodiversity enhancement.
Okay, are you happy with that? Yep, okay. Are we... I'm alive to the fact that we might not get the highway improvements, so we should. I'm alive to the fact we may not actually get affordable housing where we think we should. Is there any way, and I have seen this happen else times, so it is something that is a concern, is there any way of giving permission which isn't transferable. So if they don't get permission for 24 houses, sell it to a private investor who comes back. The principle of residential has already been agreed, and they come forward with 12 private homes. Is there any way of preventing that from happening?
Through Chair, not that would be meet all the requirements of a of conditions that are set out in the NPPF in terms of being reasonable, necessary, and all those items. If there is a scenario where it could transfer from one RSL to another, registered provider to another, so that would prevent that situation, which would still be compliant in meeting what you've said.
But in law, once permission is given, registered providers they are businesses. They are seeking to make money to keep their business going. There would be nothing to stop them selling that and it coming back for a totally different development, probably with about one affordable housing. It is possible.
Or a different application could be submitted. This is
entirely.
Yeah,
we've seen that happen before. Okay, Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. I concur with just about everything that Councillor Ben Martin said, a bit iffy on the biodiversity stuff, but there we go. I can see no planning grounds to turn this down. These are the other points I had. I can clearly remember the objections, vociferous objections, to the Thistle Hill development, because it's all open plan now, it's all open spaces, we don't want it filled in. You know, everywhere people are living now and now objecting to more development. Yours was an open space at one point, because I can remember it. So, you know, look at the size of Thistle Hill now. Could Mr. Greenwood explain, because I didn't see anything about 3-storey anywhere, but the applicant did mention 2.5-storey. What's half a storey? Because I can't quite picture that.
Through the chair, Simon, would you like to answer that one?
2.5 stories is typically used in planning and architecture to describe the third storey being set into the roof space, so using dormer windows. So it's not a full height storey, but it's sort of dormer windows within a roof space. There is an image that was submitted by the applicant to show the there is a sort of cross section which shows the houses and the block of flats and the height, so you can see how that compares. But yeah, it is to sort of, it is 3 stories, but it's a way of describing accommodation sort of set within the roof space.
But it is higher than a 2-storey with a roof.
Yes.
Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. My last point, which, to be fair, every now and again when I come to these meetings, I do raise, and that is the working party. We'll call it a working party that we used to have, where cross-party councillors discussed issues relevant to the planning committee to come to a consensus of where they want to be. Vis-a-vis, I'm looking at the 106s, and what specifically I'm looking at is the SEND facilities in Swale District. Well, I'm sorry, Swale District, there's enough problem on the Isle of Sheppey vis-a-vis SEND. Any money for SEND needs to be specifically attached to the Isle of Sheppey, because that's where the development is. I raised the other time I was here something to do with academy, secondary education, and that was in Sittingbourne. Well, you know, if you're going to give it to academies, we've got them on the island, and I think that members do need to come to a consensus of where they're going to dig their heels in future, because 106s are supposed to be, from my training, mitigation for development, because nobody wants development in my backyard. But it's no good to having mitigation if it's across the water. So I think that, I mean, this is what's been negotiated, presumably. So I'm not suggesting at this stage that you relook at it. But what I am saying is that could cross-party, you get together with the planning spokespeople to look at this kind of issue for the future, because we did have it many moons ago, and any 106s went to mitigate either in the vicinity or within the area, i.e. Sittingbourne, Faversham, Sheppey. As I say, there is a huge send issue on the Isle of Sheppey, and there is a huge transport queue going off the island every day with children to go to send facilities off the island. So we do need any monies to expand and extend. We need that to be in the place where it's needed. Thank you.
Okay then. I do have concerns about giving carte blanche on a basis of affordable when it could just come back. So for me, the question is, would I allow this? Would I support this if it wasn't affordable housing, if it was a normal open market? Because that's also what we are effectively giving permission for. We are potentially giving permission for another application to come back that is private housing. So if that was private housing, would it still be something we'd be happy to give permission for? That's what I'll be weighing into balance. Okay, there's nobody else speakers. Those in favour of the officer's recommendation, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Against? 2. That's carried. Okay, is Grace Clements online? She is, okay.
Yes, hello.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, members.
No, I'm just checking that you're here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, before I take the next item, I think people might be leaving. Okay, before we take deferred item 1, which is 505877, on the site visit, a question was raised by a councillor. Can we have clarity of what that question was, please?
Evening, Chair. Yes, there were 2 queries raised. I've actually got a slide on this to prompt us. 2 queries were raised. The first was regarding a tree protection order for 2 trees either side of the existing entrance. The council trees officer advises that the trees are prominent, healthy, and worthy of protection. However, they are not affected by the proposal and therefore are not imminently under threat. As such, this would be a precautionary TPO and not a high priority. The TPO has not been processed yet due to a backlog of other pressing cases of trees needing urgent protection. Another query was raised regarding noise complaints regarding the existing businesses at Brogdale Farm. Environmental Health confirmed that there are no recent complaints received for this site. There are 2 historical noise complaints from 2015 and 2009 in relation to the butcher of Brogdale. However, the records show that these were resolved and the council did not serve any statutory notices in respect to noise nuisance. Planning enforcement history for Brogdale Farm also shows that there were several enforcement cases opened between 2009 and 2018, mostly relating to noise, some associated with the butchers, and lighting. However, no enforcement notices were served, and no new investigations have been opened since. Notwithstanding this, the proposed development would be subject to separate planning conditions to control its hours of use and lighting. Furthermore, it is relevant to highlight that the proposed workshop units would be restricted to use classes EG 2 and 3, which are by definition uses that can be carried out in any residential area without detriment to the amenity of that area. There was also comments made about traffic data. Ospringe Parish Council have provided the traffic data to officers this morning. Would you like me to go into that now?
I'm going to give the committee 5 minutes to read all these new application items. So it would probably be better to do that now and then address the data once they've had a chance to read it. So you've got 5 minutes to read your batch of papers. If you want longer, please indicate, but hopefully 5 minutes should be okay. Okay, if everybody's back. If we are to have documents submitted to us late in the day and tabled at a meeting, I expect us to have time to read them. I expect us to read them. If we're not capable of maintaining an atmosphere in this chamber in which they can be read, then we will have to look into alternative arrangements. Because it is when people take the time to send in documents, they deserve to be read. I hope you've all read them. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did call in this room early and picked up the papers on the desk and read them. Some because I knew that they would be on the table. But sometimes it's not obvious that they're going to be on the table ready for you. Thanks.
Yes, and some people get here, trouble to get here for 7 and can't get in early. And both also, if there's tables to be laid before you, must have time to read them. So, as the officer finished his update, plenty more, I think, yeah.
No, Chair, I'm going to address that information that's been provided. So, Ospringe Parish Council provided their traffic data, which includes results from 2 separate speed watch sessions taken on the 7th of January and 4th of February over a 1-hour period in each session. The results indicate the number of vehicles recorded to pass the survey position and those that were found to be travelling above 35 miles per hour, along with the top speed recorded. However, no methodology of this process has been provided, and no evidence is provided of the qualifications of those carrying out the survey. Furthermore, there are no details of the type or quality of the equipment used in the survey. Therefore, officers cannot verify that the data provided is accurate and would advise against relying on this data over that provided in the transport statement. Section 3.5 of the transport statement sets out that 2 automatic traffic counter surveys were undertaken along Brogdale Road, either side of the proposed access. Vehicle speeds were surveyed for 1 week from the 28th of March 2019. Figures 3.3 and 3.4 show the equipment used in the traffic counter surveys. The highest speed recorded was observed to the north and headed away from the proposed development. The recorded speeds affecting the proposed site access junction were 35.9 miles per hour southbound and 34.3 northbound. The required visibility from the site access junction has been designed to account for the recorded speeds in accordance with the Manual for Streets visibility requirements. Regarding the comments on the age of the traffic data, at the time the transport statement was provided in 2021, the best data available would have been the latest data before the COVID pandemic, as traffic movements had significantly changed during and shortly after the lockdowns. Officers acknowledged that a substantial amount of time has passed since then, but Highways officers have not raised concern at the age of the data provided. KCC Highways are also consulted on all major development applications, so will be aware of the additional trips generated by the new developments in the area.
Thank you. Can I ask Grace Clements to do your presentation, please?
Hello, good evening, members. Following your site visit last month, the applicant wishes to highlight some final points before you make your decision on this application. Firstly, I just wanted to sort of highlight what was just said by the officer on the traffic data. I would urge members to focus on KCC Highways' most recent no objection, which was based off detailed junction modelling and speed surveys by qualified highway consultants. I wanted to cover why this proposal and why here. So the Trust acquired Brogdale Farm because of their interest in the national fruit collection, but also they saw the potential in creating a viable business which would then underpin their reinvestment into science and agriculture through the income that would be generated. When purchasing the site, the varied mixture of uses put forward under this application were seen as an integral part of their business plan. Whilst there have been questions raised regarding the compatibility of the uses, the East Malling Trust firmly believes that the mixture of workshops, a small nursery and holiday lets would expand what's currently on offer in a positive way, complementing the existing businesses and commercial uses in the courtyard through increased footfall and link trips, whilst supporting the wider agricultural functions. Whilst the National Fruit Collection is funded by the government and is not at risk, the East Malling Trust have become stewards, responsible for managing public access, charitable and visitor activities in association with the collection at Brogdale Farm. This part of the site is the most enclosed area of the landholding. It has been developed in the past but has since become redundant. The dilapidated glasshouses are at the end of their life cycle and the disused reservoir no longer serves a purpose. Therefore, the site is not highly productive in agricultural or horticultural terms. This is confirmed by the East Malling Trust themselves as applicants who have extensive knowledge in farming and horticultural industry. There has been historic change to Brogdale Farm over time by previous owners. It was self-evident from the site visit that Brogdale Farmhouse is well screened in most directions. The northeastern edge of the front garden is more open, however the internal access road has been shown to bend away from this boundary, and the illustrative layout shows no built development in this area of the site. As long-term owners and investors in Brogdale Farm, this application is of high importance to the Trust, who are keen to deliver the development in a sensitive way. Lastly, Swale is only one of a few local authorities in Kent to have a standalone policy directly focused on supporting the rural economy and diversification, which we hope you will support. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we continue, whilst that is on the screen, can you show us the location of the listed building on that, please?
Can't see my cursor. I actually have another slide which provides a plan of the site. I believe this will be the best one. It is, so the development is shown there in the coloured areas. So the blue buildings being the flexible workshop units, the pink building being the nursery, and the brown building in the white space just to the southwest.
Dead centre of the picture.
In the centre of the picture, that is the listed building.
So on your visualisation, it was the white building that you can see by the trees.
Yes, by the trees to the right of those grey roofed buildings.
Thank you, I think that's helpful. Can I ask Julian Harrington, please? You will have 3 minutes and you can incorporate that.
Firstly, I'd like to thank councillors for turning out on such a cold day with traffic problems to listen to some 50 people, I think it was, at the site, which gives you this sort of concern that we all have. We learned that there was a dwelling on the site where Mr. Brogdale lived in 1383. In 1485, the existing farmhouse was started, and this is 2 centuries before the Queen Anne Grade 1 listed EMT headquarters, which has been afforded swathes of green and walnut trees as its setting. Yet Brogdale Farmhouse has a Leylandii hedge as high as the house on one side, which destroys views in and out and also stops light getting into the property.
There are shops within 3 metres of the back where there was once a farmyard. The suggestion of putting industrial units to basically completely encircle the farmhouse, I think, surely can't be allowed under planning regulations, I would ask you. The reservoir used to be functional, providing water for the farm, but when it leaked, it was never repaired. It was allowed to turn to scrub where rubbish has been illegally burnt. It was beautifully landscaped then and afforded a historical and picturesque view over the fields and orchards beyond. This view will be blocked by the nursery school, which I understand does not have any take-up. Instead of being kept as a natural habitat for wildlife and a useful resource for the farm, it is going to provide a road to the industrial units with a very dangerous junction. In spite of what you've heard, it is dangerous, through which parents will drive to access the nursery school. I hope that you agree that this really doesn't make any sense at all. The industrial units, I suggest, will not be taken up because I don't think there is a need. They are a Trojan horse, and soon there'll be applications for noisier businesses as Brogdale, when there were several complaints made but not acted on. To make money as a farm, we are told just now, is not viable, but I can see acres of unused good orchard land which has not been put to good use since the Duchy sold the site to the developers in 1990s. And should you examine their website, EMT is a developer. As a farm, it will provide food security, maintain the historical setting and rural amenity, as well as protect the farmhouse, thereby providing a setting for a real jewel in the crown for Swale, which it really should be. When I put this to the trustee who attended the site meeting, his response was that we would have to agree to differ. Well, I take this as support for my argument, and I hope that I've persuaded you to feel the same way, and you can feel you can review the application and ask for a better thought through application for the historic setting of the site. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you. Can I ask Parish Councillor Andrew Keel? You get 3 minutes from when you start.
Good evening, Chairman and members. Chairman, thank you for giving members the opportunity to read the email and attachments Ospringe Parish Council sent to the Planning Officer today, as these papers set out many of our concerns. I'd like to reiterate the following. Firstly, Ospringe Parish Council honestly believes that the traffic information on which both KCC and the planning officers have relied is out of date and inaccurate, both as to traffic numbers and speeds. Our beliefs come from our observations and the Speedwatch sessions, and up-to-date details are set out in our email. Speedwatch is a police-monitored and accredited procedure, and its results are sufficient for police to take action against speeders. Brogdale Road is described in the transport statement as, I quote, a relatively quiet road with a low level of existing traffic. It is not, it is wrong. The transport statement states it has peak traffic flows of 124 movements southwards. Our Speedwatch sessions clocked 364 and 321. It's almost certain, as you've heard from the planning officer, that the traffic numbers are historic, given that the data goes back to 2019 and 2020. My next point is the site lies entirely on Grade 2 agricultural land, and its loss would be contrary to policy. My next point is that it's said that the borough is short of employment sites, but for example, the parish council has identified a 3-hectare employment site available for sale for some considerable time, adjacent to the nearby Perry Court development, with good access to the A251 and M2. In contrast, the 2023 employment land review identified a number of constraints for industrial units at Brogdale. Next, there's no identified operator for a nursery school. Laurendon School withdrew its commitment over 3 years ago. Meanwhile, there is now a new preschool facility partly funded by my parish council at the community hall in Painters Forstall. Next, the application was amended to include holiday lets. The site is an inappropriate location, and this has the appearance of a make-weight in the vital balancing exercise you have to carry out. Next, much has been made of the alleged need to grant permission in order to secure the survival of the national fruit collection at Brogdale and therefore the borough. However, it's the parish council's understanding that the national fruit collection already has a long-term future assured at Brogdale with a long-term lease in place and funding from DEFRA. Next, the proposal would cause harm to Brogdale Farmhouse, as you've heard. My final point is this. Concern was raised at the site meeting as to whether it will be possible to condition and control the contemplated limitation of uses of the industrial units, including days of hours of operating, vital given the nature and location of the site. Despite the record recited by the planning officer, there's a real sentiment this is not possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll move the officer's recommendation. Councillor Thompson. Vote open for debate. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I've got quite a lot to say, probably. Hopefully it won't be too dull. The key for me, well, it's not the key, there's a lot of keys, but the spirit of Brogdale is one of the main things. It's linked to the heritage of fruit and farming. This is an agricultural site. It's not a suburban site. It's when they mentioned about rural economy, what could be put forward, which we mentioned when we asked, have you put this on the market for rural use? The answer was no. It has not been put forward for rural use. It now turns out that 2 or 3 people would be interested in using that site for rural use. There's also been, when we look, sorry, I've lost my point here. It also feels the same as the councillor just mentioned just now, a sort of a hodgepodge. There isn't now support for the nursery, and there's now a nursery within the village itself. We've just had a debate over social housing in another rural area for something that we need. We do need social housing. We don't need an industrialisation of a rural environment. That's another key point. We mustn't be drawn in by thinking that the East Malling Trust says they need funds for their projects. I understand that all projects need funds, but in this particular zone, the history of the site has meant that it's been refused over many times, different types of applications. And when we go back to the East Malling Trust, this is their remit. The advancement of science for public benefit, primarily through the support of research and development, particularly in the fields of horticulture and other plant-based disciplines. That is the opposite of that. So for me, it's contrary in so many ways, and I feel that what should be put forward is a rural use for that site. Whether the reservoir comes back into use or not is something for debate. The glass houses, which they said were dilapidated, is actually untrue. They are usable. Spoke to a local farmer and that was the case, which was interesting. I didn't know that. So for me, I think we should be looking at this as a rural site. It's not for industrial use, which is what's been put forward. And I highlight as well the traffic issues, which wasn't brought up earlier. You have to cross the road just below a brow to then access the site as a pedestrian. So that means you've got to walk up on the wrong side of the road and then cross it. And looking at the traffic figures that the local parish have done, 46 miles an hour to access a primary education area or a nursery is not safe. So that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Winkles.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I also attended the site as well. Yes, one of my grave concerns also is the visibility of the proposed access road. The bridge coming over the M2 bridge there is a very sharp brow, and we was on there visiting on a clear, cold winter's day. Any fog or mist in that area, basically someone trying to come out of that proposed entrance, I consider to be a death trap. And also looking at the speeds here, I mean, a lot of vehicles have been breaking the speed. Getting to the inside of the site, it's obviously been, it does look a mess inside, but for whatever reason, it's been left to look like that. So inside, it would be an improvement to have some form of development in there. but I would go along with the previous speaker. I think to have it, the proposal as it is, I don't really think it's good for that site. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Speed.
Thank you, Chairman. I am concerned about the highways impacts of this application. The parish council ran 25 speed watch sessions last year. I was somewhat surprised that the officer seemed to not allocate any weight to speed watch surveys. He may not be aware that Speedwatch is a scheme that's coordinated by Kent Police. There's a very strict protocol for how it's run. You have to undertake special training before you're allowed to do it. You have to meet certain criteria before the police allow you to conduct the scheme. The police supply the equipment, and the police consider the evidence to be sufficiently robust that they will actually knock on the door of the owner of the offending vehicle. So it is a totally valid scheme. And the fact is that in 2024, 20% of all vehicles were tracked at more than 35 miles an hour. As we've heard with the sessions they've done recently, top speeds of 45, 46 miles an hour were recorded. Regarding the traffic volume data, the fact is that the data does date back to 2019, so it's out of date. It's 6 years out of date. It underestimates the volume of traffic because it doesn't take into account recent developments and certainly not recent consents, and you need to look at the cumulative effect of all these things. For example, there's been the Perry Court housing estate, there's been an increase in visitors to Brogdale collections, Laurendon School is increasing its pupil numbers, Willow Farms being expanded, etc. So as far as I can see, these haven't been taken into consideration by KCC when assessing traffic impacts. But putting aside the volume, I really am concerned about speeding. The Speed Watch campaign run by the parish councils reporting 30 to 40 speeders every hour in the morning rush hour. And I attended the site visit, and I have to say I was really shocked at the proximity of the proposed access to the site to the brow of the hill, which is really quite steep. So a car coming from Faversham over the motorway bridge at 45 miles an hour will have very little time to stop. Bearing in mind it's proposed there'll be a nursery school there, so there will be the likelihood of children being at or near the entrance. I think this is potentially very dangerous from my observation of the site, and the NPPF does say that development can be refused on highways grounds if there would be an unacceptable impact on road safety, and I think there is here. Talking of the school, Laurendon has pulled out. No firm interest has been expressed by anybody else, so there's no guarantee it will come forward. And it does seem to me that the middle of an industrial zone is a very incongruous and dissonant location for a nursery school. The report gives significant weight to supporting economic growth and productivity as a result of the proposal for the industrial units. My understanding is that some of the existing units are regularly vacant. Again, on the site visit, I didn't notice much activity going on in those units. In fact, I don't think I saw any activity. And also there's the industrial development site just across the M2 from Brogdale, part of Perry Court. That's still available for purchase years after going onto the market. So I'm not convinced there's a demand for even more of these industrial employment units.
This application conflicts with policy DM31 of the local plan, which protects best, most versatile land. This is grade 2 land, so that's classified as very good land. And whilst it may not currently be in use, that doesn't mean to say it can't be. The site is not allocated in the local plan, and the applicant hasn't put forward any evidence to show that there are no alternative sites of lower grade. The location of the site is outside the settlement boundary, so it contravenes policy ST3 as well. It's also not within a rural service centre or designated employment site or urban area, so it's not in accordance with parts of policy DM3. It will also cause harm to the setting of the grade 2 listed Brogdale farmhouse, which has been on the site since the 1300s, and that puts it in conflict with policy CP8, which is conserving and enhancing the historic environment, and in conflict with policy DM32, which is to do with development involving listed buildings. I know this listed farmhouse has already been quite seriously impacted by past development, but that's no reason to compound the problem. So the nursery school might not come forward. Frankly, I think it's the wrong sort of nursery for that particular location. I'm not convinced we need the workshops, and do we really need 5 holiday lets? I'm just not convinced that the benefits of this scheme outweigh the contravention of so many policies in our local plan. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I can assure you that at least one of the units was in use, as I sampled some Madcap Brewery. Councillor Kavanagh.
I was on the site visit. I was saddened at what must have been a beautiful area with the reservoir and the greenhouses, that it has been allowed to get into that state. We were only able to access the site due to Brogdale strimming established brambles to ground level. Oh, it was muddy. It looked awful. I would like the area cleaned up and used as a plant nursery. The greenhouses only appear to have a few broken panes of glass. The reservoir could be filled. This would be more in keeping of what I would think of when I was thinking of Brogdale. This option would also allow the listed building not to be hemmed in on all sides by the development. And regarding the access, we stood on the path opposite from the site, and you haven't even come down the hill where the access road is proposed. We had people hooting because some of the councillors chose to stand in the road. I kept my feet firmly on the pavement. Also, where the proposed access is to the road, it's about 2 metres lower than the road. So if you can imagine a great steep slope coming up to a faster moving path, and although it's not meant to be a pedestrian access there, if I, as a non-driver, were to walk my kids up there, I would take the closest possible access, which would be there. I think, it's interesting, prior to all of this getting neglected, the access to the greenhouses and the reservoir was the existing access. If this has to go ahead, I would prefer to use the existing access, which is far away from the brow of the hill. My gut feeling is this parcel of land, if it gets planning approval, would just get sold off to make money. It won't be any longer part of Brogdale. That might not be a planning condition, but I thought the ethos of Brogdale was about countryside and growing and greenness. Sorry.
Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chairman. So you know how rare it is for me to speak at planning. So First of all, I'd like to say to you, Chairman, I thank the committee for having a site visit for this one, because it wasn't until you actually got there that the site itself came alive, so to speak, with the application. So I agree with everything that has been said so far on this application. Councillor Thompson took a very extensive look at the grounds itself, and I appreciate his experience in that. My main fear and my main worry is the access point. There is no pavement the other side. As Councillor Kavanagh said, we did have a councillor, Councillor Winkless, who was stood in the road, and the officer was getting quite worried by the fact that we were at the side of the road and he was the other side. Don't think we needed any more by-elections. But it's the safety aspect of this road. You can see it is not that far, well, you can't on that, but it's not that far away from the brow of the hill. So it is probably the wrong way of saying this, but it is an accident waiting to happen. So you've got all the trees down there blocking any sight of people coming in or going out. You've got, yeah, if we have pedestrians going in, by the looks of it, you've got a pavement at the side. All well and good, but again, it's hidden. There will be it's the safety aspect of this application that is worrying me the most. Also, we've got hours of usage. So we've got a nursery that they're saying is going to be 7 till 7, the same as the workshops. Nurseries, the staff will have to get there early. The staff will leave late. So 7 to 7 just isn't going to happen. If we're looking at green credentials and encouraging people to use other ways of going to work, I certainly wouldn't want to be a cyclist going down that road. I just think the whole ethos of Brogdale is country, it is rural, it is giving back to encouraging the agricultural garden of Kent that we are. This is not going to help. I know we can't see this as a planning issue, but I agree with what Councillor Speed has said. There is so much there that we can look at. And on top of all of that, we've got that beautiful farmhouse, the listed building, that is going to just be cut off in a way. And I have a bit of an issue with this, Chairman, so I will have an open mind and see how this debate goes. But it is the safety aspect that I have on this. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Yeah, it's hard for the many that weren't there, it's hard to get a real feel for crossing that road from the pictures. The pictures make it look like it's just a normal piece of road. But when you're actually standing there crossing, it's hard to believe that that's considered to be acceptable. And I have concerns about the nursery. The nursery doesn't seem in keeping with the site, but you're either going to have children crossing that road, which is a concern, or more likely, everybody's going to drive there. And that isn't what we're supposed to be looking for in sustainable development. It's going to be totally car reliant or putting kids in a really dodgy position, and neither of those is particularly appealing. So I have concern. My concerns are mainly about the nursery and that access. I know that we haven't, KCC have looked at it and said they feel fine. If we wanted to, if we feel like we want to object or not give permission, we would need to conduct our own independent traffic analysis, which may take us out of time. When is the time for this one due? So I'll come back to that one, if you can just get us that. So we would have to bear that in mind. We could choose to defer to get that, but again, it may take us out of time. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out the reason we found it quite hard when crossing the road is the motorway is so loud that you can't actually, because a lot of people rely on the sound of traffic coming, you can't hear traffic coming because of the motorway. So that was one of the issues. The other thing I'd like to go back to is the rural setting and the learning that could be done from what's already happening there with the Brogdale Fruit Trial for other people to get involved in rural research, organic research, that sort of thing, which could happen on that particular site. And bringing the reservoir back in, which could be done, I don't know whether that would happen or not, could be really suitable for that particular site as well. And also the employment factor, because they cited employment, with it becoming organic, whatever type of research that may happen there, in itself, that would imply quite a considerable amount of people. So I think going with Councillor Speed's points and also the loss of BMV at the back of the site, the loss of the glass houses, again, not a sustainable move if we can put them back into use. So they're the other points I just wanted to bring up, really.
Thank you. Do we have the deadline? Okay, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. I may not have been on the site visit, but I think I know this road pretty well, having spent 5 years walking down it to see a past girlfriend back in the day, most days. So let's be very blunt, it is not suitable. It's not suitable for walking down. It's not suitable for cycling down. You might see the pelotons at the weekend, the middle-aged men in Lycra. God love it. I think we already have a fairly dangerous access there anyway, in terms of the property next door, which is fully concealed by the trees. I think it's the wrong side of the M2 for a nursery straight away. Actually, those properties in that area are not going to serve it, so they would be people coming from Perry Court. So not suitable in that regard. I have some sympathy for the idea of having research facilities in that location, given you've got the National Fruit Collection and you may want newer research facilities nearby. I have some sympathy for the idea of having holiday lets, given that you have the cider festival and you have the fruit collection and people that do come from far and wide who may want to stay a little closer so that they can enjoy that. But the scheme that's before us just doesn't stack up for me. It's not an acceptable way of doing it. I think perhaps if it were an expansion of the existing facilities there, done in a sympathetic way where you do have the research and you do have the holiday lets at the back, but it comes off the same access and it is supplementary, it could come up with a viable scheme. But this isn't it. So at the moment, I'm inclined to go against the officer recommendation.
For those who weren't there as well, I think Councillor Kavanagh makes a good point. The ditch, effectively gradient, that would be required for that site access, it's going to have quite an impact for some way either side, because, well, it'd be some engineering feat to achieve it. We have a date, I believe.
Yes, we do. The previously agreed extension of time was for the 20th of December last year.
So if we refuse it, there's a chance they will appeal on non-determination. That doesn't prevent us from putting in the grounds we may have objected on. It would mean that we would, if we were to reject it on highways grounds, be reliant on a independent traffic survey or study, which may not back us up. But, and if we withdrew that objection later, that we would possibly be liable to costs on that single aspect. So I'll just mention that. But on the whole, if we don't feel it's an appropriate use of the... If there are reasons beyond the highways and the site access, then that's what members also need to consider. Oh, lots of hands now. Councillor Harrison.
It's been some years, but I spent a lot of time on diversification in the countryside over the years. And I think what was envisaged in the Act and all the regs, this could be seen to be stretching it so thin as it's almost breaking. How's that? That's not a form of words, but it's a theme, because I very much support diversification in the countryside if it will keep the main farm business going and utilises land and stuff that is no longer needed. However, there's got to be some limits, and as I say, this is stretching. I think this stretches, from what I'm hearing and reading, it's stretching it to well beyond the bounds. So if somebody could come up with a form of words, but there is no way I would support refusal on highway grounds, because when I started you could be surcharged, and I still take that view. If I was willing to chip in my share of the fine, not a problem, but I'm not.
Okay, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Harrison has already said virtually everything I was going to say.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no further comments, those in favour of the officer's recommendation, please show. 1, 2. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Abstentions? 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is lost. Right. Any proposals? I do think we need a traffic survey. Now, we can defer to get a traffic survey and then be bounced into a appeal for non-determination. Are there other grounds that people would object on? Councillor Speed.
Well, planning's all about balance, isn't it? But I do feel that the benefits of the scheme are not don't outweigh the number of policies that it conflicts with, and I listed quite a few of them: DM31, ST3, DM3, CP8, DM33.
I think you'll need to remind people what they are.
Well, DM31 is obviously protecting BMV land. It's outside the settlement boundary, so that's ST3. DM3, it's not within a rural service centre or a designated employment site. And then policies CP8 and DM32 are to do with development around listed buildings and conserving and enhancing the historic environment. That's quite a lot of policies it contravenes.
Councillor Winklis.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, just adding on to the concerns about the speed of the traffic, and as I think I said, other councillors have said tonight, is the visibility of that bridge. And as far as I'm concerned, if you've got young children and mothers, their safety, in my mind, comes first. And I don't want blood on my hands. Thank you.
Yeah, I personally would like to specify the nursery. I don't think there's a demonstrable need. I don't think it is. They've shown that it's an appropriate use of the land. And of all of the proposals, I feel that is the most damaging one. I don't know if I've got any support on that. Anything else, anyone? Councillor Speed?
Well, there's also not there's been no demonstration of the need for these extra industrial employment units. A lot of them seem to be vacant. I may have missed the beverages, but there wasn't much, and I gather quite a few of these sites
there's always some of these sites vacant at the moment, so why is there a need for a whole lot of extra ones, particularly when there's an entire development site just across the road that nobody's shown any interest in, so that there's been no demonstration of a need for this employment area.
Okay, I get the feeling we're looking at a proposal to refuse. I'm okay, I think we have a agreement on what's been proposed. So I'll let Councillor Speed make his proposal. You just have to refer back to what you said earlier. We have some potential wording, if that would help.
I'd love to hear it.
Right. Through you, Chair, I've listened, and I'd suggest rather than bundling them into one reason for refusal, just quoting policies. I think you'd need to identify harm. Sorry.
I cannot hear.
Sorry. Shall I lean in? Is that better? I've listened to the tone of what's been said, and Councillor Speed has set out lots of policy conflicts, but I would suggest that we focus on the specific harms that are caused and then tie them back to what the local plan says rather than just quoting. And rather than bundling all the issues that have been raised into one, I can put forward 4 reasons for refusal, and perhaps councillors would like to choose which of them they do or don't proceed with. In terms of highways, we could say it has not been sufficiently demonstrated that the proposed development would be able to be served by a safe access, and as such the proposal will be likely to have a detrimental impact on highway safety. The proposal is therefore unacceptable and contrary to policies CP2, DM6 and DM14 and the MPPF. In terms of best and most versatile agricultural land, the proposed development will result in the loss of BMV agricultural land, and it has not been demonstrated that an overriding need exists for the development that cannot be met on land within the built-up boundaries, or that no alternative site on land at a lower grade could accommodate the proposed development. The proposal is therefore unacceptable and contrary to policies ST1, ST7, DM13 and the MPPF. If some councillors referred to the listed building and the impact on its setting, if that wanted to be taken forward, it could read the quantum and commercial nature of the proposed development and its positioning relative to a nearby listed building on former farmland associated with the listed farmhouse would cause less than substantial harm to the setting of that heritage asset, and the harm is not outweighed by public benefits arising from the proposal. The proposal is therefore unacceptable and contrary to ST1, ST7, CP8, DM14, DM32 and the MPPF. And in terms of the locational aspects of it, the application site lies outside of any defined settlement boundary within the countryside. Therefore, by virtue of the inappropriate quantum and siting of the proposed development, the proposal would result in urbanisation of the site and the area. Moreover, due to the position of the site relative to sustainable modes of transport, users of the site are highly likely to be reliant on the use of private modes of transport in such a way that undermines the objective of sustainably locating development. The proposal is therefore unacceptable and contrary to ST1, ST3, ST7, CP2, CP4, DM3, DM6 and DM14 and the MPPF.
I think that's pretty much what you were going to say, isn't it, Councillor?
Well, you took the words out of my mouth. I'm very happy to propose that.
Okay, can I just add, if this passes, but we authorise and it does go to appeal, but we authorise a traffic survey. It doesn't have to come back here or anything to make a decision, but that is done automatically.
Agreed.
Okay, I'm happy to second the proposal. All those in favour, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Those against. 1, 2. Abstentions. 1, 2. So that is refused. Thank you. Oh no, there's one more item. Okay, item 2.1, which is for Western Works. We do have a late document, which I think will only take a minute to read. Do we feel we can keep quiet for a minute whilst those of us who haven't read it can read it? All right. Is anyone still reading? Okay, then I will ask the officer to give the summary.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, councillors. This application here is for a site titled Western Works, which lies on the northern side of Brent Hill, to the northern side, to the north of Faversham Creek. The application site is occupied by an Art Deco building and forms the northern parcel of the BMM Western site, which is allocated within the newly published Faversham Neighbourhood Plan under policy FAV3 for residential development. There's an aerial image there which shows a site outlined in red. To the left of that, it's not completely clear on the screen, but there's a property outlined in blue, which presents one of that's supposed to delineate one of the identified constraints, which is a Grade 2 listed building to the site, which is just to the west of the site. This image here shows the proposed site layout. Now the site lies within the conservation area, but due to the topography, which you'll see in some of the photographs later on, only the southwestern portion of the site is kind of prominent within the surrounding public realm. This is ensured by the also by the presence of development around the northern and eastern boundaries, which are residential properties along Redland Crescent and Bramble Hill Road, and also the rest of the industrial development within the rest of the Western Works site to the south. Now, as previously mentioned, the listed building to the west of the site is, you can see, just to the side of the red outline there, known as Davington Manor. There's another listed, well, they're listed buildings. They're actually the former blast walls that were associated with the former gunpowder manufacturing processes that originally carried out on the site. Those listed structures align the western boundary and the southern boundary adjacent to the site entrance at the northern end of Brent Hill. Now here's some images that show the elevations of the proposed dwellings. Now the mix of dwellings here is for nine properties with a mix of 6 3-bed and 3 4-bed. They're arranged as 2 pairs of semi-detached buildings and 5 detached properties. Now these 2 images show the pair of semi-detached properties that are closest to the access on Brent Hill. So just to the bottom kind of left-hand corner is those two units there. That's the front and rear elevations, and these are a couple of images that show how they would appear from Brent Hill, taking into account the blast wall that lines the roadside boundary. Some more images of I haven't given you images of all of the properties, but these give a fair kind of understanding of the variation of design. And some more images of plots 8 and the other pair of semi-detached properties, which are identified as 4 and 5. Going on to some images that show the site. Now this is looking at the site access from Brent Hill. That is one of the blast walls which is listed, which lines the road. And that gives an idea of the topography of the site and how it's screened, particularly if you're coming up the road from Faversham. This is some pictures of the existing office building in the site, looking south, and the image to the right is looking to the west along the northern boundary into or towards Davington Manor. The images, both of these images are kind of looking south along the eastern boundary of the site. So the image on the left gives you the eastern boundary of the office building. Now, this building is to remain, but the kind of extension, the rear extension, which is shown on the left-hand kind of side of that image, is proposed for removal in order to provide some enhanced capacity for the trees that are in the site to be retained as part of the scheme. Image to the right is...
Sorry, whilst that's up, can you confirm, is that listed?
No, the building in its own right isn't listed, no. Building on the right is the southern portion of the site, looking back towards the entrance. The southern portion of the site, looking down over the industrial units, and then to the right, and the following images are looking back towards the site entrance, just to give an idea of the landscaping that's within the site, and which would be those trees would be retained as part of the scheme. That's the end. The recommendation is obviously to approve.
Thank you. Can I ask Stephen Atkins is online, if you would like to speak now, thank you.
Thank you, yes. Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. I'm the Land Director of the Faversham Community Land Trust and spent my career as a chartered surveyor specialising in residential and mixed-use development. The Faversham Community Land Trust has a mission to secure affordable housing for Faversham folk across all tenures. The Trust have no principal objection to the residential development on this site, but to say the least, disappointed that no provision for affordable housing is being sought. Our representation dated the 9th of February 2023 challenged the applicant's statement, which cites policy DM8 in the local plan, stating that no affordable housing should be provided. We are disappointed that the planning report to committee makes no reference to the detail of our representations justifying this challenge. Paragraph 7.14.1 of the committee report echoes the applicant's stance, stating, as the proposals are for under 10 units, there is no policy requirements for affordable housing in this instance. The Trust believe this position is flawed in the context of planning policy for the following reasons. Paragraph 65 of the National Planning Policy Framework states that the provision of affordable housing should not be sought for residential developments that are not major developments. This clearly implies that affordable housing should be considered for major development. Very little affordable housing has been built in Faversham in recent years, and virtually no social rented housing. Major development is defined in the Town and Country Planning Development Management Procedure Order 2015. Paragraph 2C defines a scheme as major development in circumstances where 1. The number of dwelling houses to be provided is 10 or more. We have 9 here at the present time. Or, and it is caveated by the statement under 2, that the development is to be carried out on a site having an area of 0.5 hectares or more, and it is not known whether the development falls within paragraph C1. The area of the development site is 0.93 acres, which exceeds the minimum threshold of 0.5 hectares. Furthermore, the applicant's planning statement says that in due course it is intended to restore and retain the vacant office building, converting it to residential use. They go on to say that it is anticipated that when circumstances allow, submissions under Class NA of the Town and Country Planning General Permitted Development Order will be submitted to the Borough Council. They are silent on the anticipated numbers to be provided in any conversion, but their planning statement states that 3 visitor parking spaces and 16
I'm sorry,
parking
that's your
spaces
3 minutes.
designated for the existing office building were incorporated into the proposed layout.
Thank you. Can I? No, sorry, that's it. Sorry. Can we turn him off, please?
Beforehand this evening. Okay, I'll shut up now. Thank you.
Councillor Gibson, you are speaking as Faversham Town Councillor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for allowing me to swap hats this evening. I'll be relatively brief. The Town Council agrees that this is a suitable site for development. It is in our newly adopted neighbourhood plan and is an entirely sustainable development for housing, and we look forward to housing coming forward on this site and the whole site. However, this is unfortunately inappropriate development and is not compliant with a number of our new neighbourhood plans policies. It is not compliant, we believe, with Faversham 3, the housing mix. Faversham does not require a large number of new family homes. We need smaller starter homes to meet the need of our growing community. It does not comply with Faversham 7. This updated policy and updated proposal features less hedgerow and less natural biodiversity than the previous one. That is clearly not what we are aiming for and is not what's set out in Faversham 7. It's not compliant with Faversham 8. This doesn't include a sustainable urban drainage system. Faversham is a hugely water-deprived area with incredibly starved and struggling sewerage already, and so we cannot conscience overburdening it further. Nor is it compliant with Faversham 11, the heritage policies around that, particularly around the blast wall, but also the other buildings are not up to the standards we would like to see in that neighbourhood plan. Finally, Faversham 10 talks about the whole site and the plan we would like to see within that for proper sustainable development that works for the whole community. And this is really the crux of the issue. We know that there is more development coming on this site. We welcome that and want to see it come forward sooner. This salami slicing approach means we don't get the affordable housing we deserve on this site at this time, and we look forward to the whole process coming together so we get everything that our town needs from this application. And I would like to second the Faversham Community Land Trust's excellent point that there are two definitions of major development, and this meets the second one even in its own right, and would certainly meet it if it was taken as a whole thing. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. When was the, this is a question for officers, when was the Faversham Neighbourhood Plan adopted? December 24. Well done. Okay, Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with everything Councillor Gibson said, particularly this salami slicing, because they've tuned into this over the years. We just drip feed it and then we haven't got to stump up, and I think it's totally out of order. However, I read on the report that this was registered 8th of July 2022. You can hardly comply when you put in your planning application with policies that actually don't exist. So my question through you to the officers were, can you retrospectively use policies to determine the application?
Yes, I think I know where you're going, because I was going there as well. We have neighbourhood plans. We encourage them. We encourage the work and the expense that goes behind them. What is the position vis-à-vis an adopted local plan against planning applications that have yet to be determined?
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of the development plan, when a neighbourhood plan's adopted, even if it's later on in the process, when you're assessing the application, you still need to take into consideration the latest adopted position. So even though this came in 2022, the application itself, the neighbourhood plan came in 2024, so we would have had to have consideration essentially of the policies that are contained within. And that's what we've done in this particular assessment. We carefully considered what was in the neighbourhood plan, kind of made a balance based on the proposals and the benefits and disbenefits.
Councillor Winklis. Quite right. I'll move the officer's recommendation. Seconded. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, me and Councillor Kavanagh did go down there Monday morning, actually, and had a look at this. First of all, I'll start with the third thing that's come up tonight with our applications. Have a concern about the visibility again, if this was to be passed. One coming round, I think, from the westerly direction. There's quite a sharp bend there. It's a steep hill going in through what is now the gates are there. If this was to be passed tonight, I quote 5.2 and 5.3 about how the water, surface water is going to be drained away. That should be a great concern. We did have a look round, me and Councillor Kavanagh, about the creek there. It does seem quite a, excuse me saying it, but with the tides down it's quite polluted. So I'm going to come around and say I think that members of this committee that haven't seen it, no doubt the Faversham councillors know it well, I would like to request a site meeting, please, so other members of this committee can have a look at it before they make their decision, if I've got a seconder. Thank you.
I'd like to hear from a few more people before we make that decision, in case there's other things we would like to consider on the site visit. But we will come back to that. I had a feeling you were going now. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you. Could we have a comment from officers on the major minor development, especially with the area that was quoted by the parish council?
Yep, can we have that clarified?
Yeah, certainly. So the site area is falls below the 1 full hectare in size, which is the kind of trigger point for, in its own right, for affordable housing contributions, unless the definition, it's a national definition, alternatively is if you have 0.5 hectares and, as the councillors previously noted, the number of dwellings proposed on the site or within the scheme is not known. In this instance, we can only consider what's before us. The number of dwellings is 9 units, which doesn't meet the trigger for affordable housing, so that's how we've assessed the scheme.
Come back.
Thank you. Thanks for that. I'm sorry, it wasn't the Parish Council, it was the Community Land Trust. I got that wrong. So that's cleared that up, that we are definitely looking, and it is minor development, so there is nowhere to go with the affordable housing, unfortunately. I can understand the concerns with the building in the middle being used for development. If it was all coming together, we would then be looking at housing, but from what was said, obviously that would come forward under a separate thing and not requiring planning permission. It would be permitted development, and they'd be putting a certificate of lawfulness, or whatever it's called now, forward for that. So again, there is no way around that we can get, I think, affordable housing on there. There is other concerns that have been raised, but I've not really heard anything that would give any grounds of reason to refuse it. So I would go with the officer's recommendation.
Okay, Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. A question first. We look at the front page of the agenda with the recommendations, etc. And I just find it incredulous that we've got a date of registration in July 2022 with a target date of October 2022 for decision, and it is now coming before us 2.5 years later. Can I have an explanation, please?
Do we have an explanation as to why this one's taken longer than we might have expected? I think the answer is no. Probably because we've changed officers.
I'm sorry, Chairman, that's just not good enough.
I don't disagree.
I think it's primarily
the officer's going to have a look into this stuff. Would you like to carry on, Councillor Clark?
Thank you. And just one point through you, Chair, is a point that Councillor Winklis raised about the highways. It does state on page 190, 7.5.5, KCC Highways confirmed that the 9 dwellings would generate far less vehicle movements than the existing use that are permitted on the site.
Yes, we must be wary that we don't object on the traffic movements when we're also objecting that there's not enough housing being built. Do we have... Okay, I'll carry on. Councillor Thompson.
No, I just agree with Councillor Gibson around the local plan, and that it's not delivering something and it feels that it's sliced up. I imagine the office is still going to function as an office, is it? I missed that bit. It's not.
Is that the case?
So it's my understanding that there's limited functionality of the office at the moment. If you go and look at the site, so the access at the moment is kind of gated off, but there is a car park to the south of the wider Western Works site, which I've been informed is kind of used by the employees.
Thanks.
Do you want to come back?
No, thanks for that bit of information. So again, would it be a case of need if we haven't got housing being allocated that we need, but it's just, you know, a sort of a profiteering game again, I suppose. But I can't see any other reasons at the moment. I'm struggling, so thanks. Apart from obviously the design is pretty poor.
Is it a planning matter or planning consideration? But especially as it has been identified as a residential site within a local plan, adopted local plan, but this is underutilisation of the resource.
I think the assessment that we applied as officers was that there's some kind of historic sensitivity as well to this site. So what we didn't want to do is kind of overload, in particular, the density of the site. And it was one of the comments I think early on that the heritage officer made in terms of reducing the density to respond more sympathetically, which is why we've seen some kind of more detached properties around the plot to kind of enhance the spaciousness around it. So that's...
Okay, thank you. Is that Mr. Geldof's house next door? No, different Davington, is it? Ah. He is a freeman of the borough, I remember. Do we have... yeah, we've got an account, Councillor Clark.
Sorry for the delay. Thank you, Chair. Looking at the file, it was submitted in July 22. We've had 4, perhaps 5 batches of amended plans, additional information submitted. It has had more than one case officer. I don't think any of the case officers present tonight were here when it was first submitted, so I can't vouch for how many it's had, but it has had a few case officers, but there has been quite a lot of amendments to get it to the condition that is before us now. So it's a combination of things why it's taken 2.5 years to reach this point.
Okay. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. I think this, listening to the debate, I think it's very much around where the Faversham Neighbourhood Plan sits. Now, if I take page number 116 of Faversham's Neighbourhood Plan, which has been recently adopted, it refers to this particular site under policy FAV 23 BMM Western Limited Parcel 2 land at Brent Road. It includes interpretation of the policy and states very clearly that that it would be suitable for apartment style living. It would be a larger site. It would be utilising the offices as part of that. There is no permitted development right in there because it is in the conservation area. So they're going to have to come forward with an application if they want to do the conversion of the office anyway, which we know is going to come at some point. It does contravene certainly the spirit of the neighbourhood plan, and I think it does clearly contravene FAV 3, FAV 7, FAV 8, FAV 11, FAV 10 and FAV 23. Now, given that that neighbourhood plan was put through on referendum with a significant margin, was it 98%? No, sorry, 96. I do apologise. Thank you for correcting me, Chair. But 96% is still a pretty large majority of support. It is more recent than our own local plan. I think I would give additional weight to those policies in comparison with our others. The principle of development is not in question. The site's allocated, but it doesn't comply with the policies, the design code, etc., that have gone into this. And in terms of, where would we fit the neighbourhood plan? Is it fair considering they submitted in 2022? There was an emerging neighbourhood plan from 2019, 2020. So there was an emerging neighbourhood plan. It took 4.5 years for it to get to the stage that it went to referendum and got approval, and then got implemented here in December. So if anybody wants to suggest that they were not aware, they would have had to have submitted the land to the town council and the group that were developing the neighbourhood plan at the time for it to be included as an allocated site. They'd have also given an indication on the number of dwellings that they thought would be able to be produced on the site. And from memory, this one was around 23, 24. So to come back with 9, well, that's not what they were asking for when they got allocated. Are we going to set that precedent that actually, do you know what, you can say that you're going to deliver this to get approved into a neighbourhood or local plan, and then when it comes to it, do you know what, I'm going to build them 9 at a time so I don't have to pay any 106 money, so I don't have to contribute towards the schools, so I don't have to contribute towards affordable housing. It's an absolute mickey take by the landowner, and I think that the committee would be well within its right to refuse and to cite it on the grounds that it fails to comply with Faversham's neighbourhood plan and list the policy numbers.
I think there's also the matter that we are supposed to push for master planning of sites, especially a site that's in a delicate area. That means that you want to see a site, a plan for the whole site in one single development. You know how it's going to look, you know how they're going to impact on each other. That is good planning, good design making. This seems to be going out of its way to avoid anything that we might want to see. Okay, I have Councillor Speed.
Thank you, Chairman. My points have largely been made. Actually, I was going to raise the question about whether it was a major development or not, because I noticed in the written response the officer didn't actually respond to the size of the site, but I understand from the verbal explanation that it doesn't hit the trigger point, so it's not a major development. So we'll have to assume that is the case. This is not the first time I've seen a proposal for 9 dwellings. It's funny, isn't it? 9 seems to be a magic number for houses. And, you know, I think this is a really underhand game that developers play, particularly as we know that more development is coming. I think we really need to see the whole picture, and I think the Faversham neighbourhood plan is a fantastic piece of work, and it's been adopted, and it's been made clear that this development contravenes no fewer than 6 policies in the Faversham neighbourhood plan. So I think on that basis I am going to vote against it. Thank you.
Councillor Kavanagh.
Thank you. When I went with Councillor Winklis, I know the area well. My dad used to have an allotment right on the corner at the top of Daventton Hill and Brent Hill. What isn't clear from these photos is how narrow and windy the road is. I appreciate it's on the Faversham neighbourhood plan, but while we were looking at the shut gates, because we couldn't get in obviously, people were walking up and down and they were chatting to us. I appreciate it's in the plan, but it is a bit of a weird place. People have always walked up and down that hill. Residents were concerned about the state of the sewage at the moment, suggesting that sometimes untreated sewage ends up in the creek. That shouldn't happen. Clearly, Southern Water or South East Water, whoever it is you have now in Faversham, should deal with that. It's quite interesting. I'd thought before listening to the debate tonight, having lived in flats and houses, surely houses are better, but listening to Councillor Gibson and Councillor Martin, if it was meant to be 23 properties and the whole site, that to me makes more sense to have a development for the whole site, and then of course to hopefully include some affordable rented housing, but to know how it's going to settle in, because if the building is not listed, the offices, what is to stop them being knocked down and a few more houses put in instead? And that would change something that has been there for a long, long time. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Winklis, do you wish to go ahead with your call for site visit?
I still would like a site visit if I've got a seconder, please. Thank you.
Does anyone wish to second that? No. Okay. Those in favour of the officer's recommendation?
By the chair, I can come back quickly. Right, so 5.2 and 5.3, this concerns about the water, the wastewater. Can make sure we've got a condition put on that this is properly drained away if this is to be passed tonight at this meeting.
Okay, can we have a condition regarding the water drainage?
We could.
Because it states here, 5.2, 5.3, there are concerns about the wastewater.
Yeah, we've just had it confirmed. We can put a condition
So
on.
that condition to be on. Okay, thank you.
Okay, those in favour of the officer's recommendation, please show. Yeah, I didn't think that condition would be necessary. Those against, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Abstentions? Councillor Winkler, I haven't got you on anything. You voted against. Okay, thank you for confirming that. That is lost. Do we have a counter proposal? Councillor Martin.
I propose that the that the application is refused on the grounds that it fails to comply with the recently adopted Faversham Neighbourhood Plan, specifically policies FAV3, FAV7.
You're going to have to remind us what they are so that we can agree with them.
Yeah, aye. In which case, can I propose that we suspend standing orders because we're a bit close?
Are we agreed to suspend standing orders?
Thank you. Right, ooh, look at that. Oh, you've written them out for me. How lovely. Thank you very much. So FAV3 is the housing mix. FAV7 is the... oh, God. That's as bad as mine.
Natural environment.
Natural environment, there we are. FAV8 is water, flooding and water. FAV11 is... Let me get it up on here. It's going to be... Heritage policies. It is heritage. I was going to say, I've seen so many drafts of this that some of the numbers are different to where they were. FAV10, sustainable design and character, and FAV23, which is the BMM Western Limited Parcel 2 at Brent Road allocation, including its interpretation.
Okay. Anybody wish to add anything to that? Let us make sure that we are not objecting on contrary reasons. Ian?
Thank you, Chair. My suggestion would be that we need to nail down what the harm is rather than just a conflict with policy. Specific elements of what, and I'd also, a number of those policies align with the local plan, which if we're referring to, we shouldn't just refer to the harm to the neighbourhood plan, we should identify what the planning harm is and then tie it to the policies after that, and that can be neighbourhood plan and local plan policies.
So, would we like to tie them to the harms now, Councillor Martin?
Yeah, we can tie to the harms. So the housing mix fails to meet the identified housing need within the Faversham area. For FAV7, we have the natural environment and landscape. It just doesn't fit in. It's not, but particularly when you go to the flooding and water element of it, because you haven't got the sustainable drainage, it will naturally cause harm to the environment and nature, because you're going to have the water just, particularly the surface water, just flooding out the gates down the hill where it currently congregates, and you get wet feet.
But that would be better with 23.
That would be with 23 as well, and with policy 10, 11, 10.
I'm just trying to understand how a problem that arises with 9 doesn't become worse with 23.
9's not in there, that's air quality. So in terms of...
9 dwellings.
Oh, 9 dwellings? Oh, it's purely because they haven't provided the information. If they'd given details as to how they were planning on using sustainable drainage, such as a SUD system,
right, okay,
whatnot, we might actually have something that's more acceptable. I think in terms of the design of the dwellings, they are actually harmful to the character of the building that's in the middle. You've got an Art Deco style. What have we got apart from little boxes? I don't want little boxes. If you've got an Art Deco style, surely you complement it with Art Deco style. Or is that me being a little bit too ambitious?
I think the design concerns are valid, providing that we can that you think that 23 apartments will look better. The 23 apartments will, of course, be in place of the Art Deco blocks.
They'd be utilising the Art Deco block. That's
Well, they'll be utilising. Are we sure that they actually can be utilised, those buildings?
Yeah, that's why it's in the policy.
Okay, carry on.
Where was I? So we've done 7, so natural environment and landscaping. We've done 8, which is the flooding and surface water. So FAV 10. I've just lost FAV 10. Come back. The joys of hyperlinks. Sustainable design character. It isn't look at the orientations again. We've already talked about orientation no end of times tonight. Yes, there are some south-facing roofs, but most are south-east-facing, and then therefore north-west-facing. So you could adjust that to make that more beneficial in that regard. And again, there is no master plan, as you've stated. A master plan would make this possibly suitable, but at the moment, it's it just flies in the face of the spirit of the plan and of those policies.
Thank you. Any other policies that people or issues people would like to raise on this one? Councillor Speed.
Did we raise the point that it's not in accordance with apartment style living, which is what the Faversham neighbourhood plan calls for?
Okay. Okay. Yep, Ian.
For you, Chair, I'd suggest staying away from the flood risk and surface water drainage issues. It's not a major development for the reasons that we've said, so there's no need to provide sustainable urban drainage in that context. A condition could reasonably cover the requirements to achieve, so I think that would be unsound. You referred to in policy FAV 11, which is heritage. I've not heard anything, but apologies if I've missed, about what harm is being caused to heritage assets at or near the site, or that the site forms a part of.
I would include sorry, Chair, through you. I would include the office building as being a heritage asset, even though it's not identified as a listed building. It is within a conservation area, and it is a pretty unique building. Okay, we saw photographs of it from the, for want of a better word, arse end, not the desirable front end, but I do like that as a building.
Yeah, you might want to try and rush that onto a heritage list. Councillor Speed.
I was wondering why Councillor Gibson was being so quiet, but I've just remembered he's not allowed to speak, is he? I seem maybe Councillor Martin can't read his handwriting then, because I thought he did raise a point under heritage policies on FAV 11 when he spoke. I don't know if it's worth Councillor Martin reading that out in case that's helpful.
Was there something in about yeah, was there something about the impact on the heritage site, but it clashed with the setting and the integrity?
I think that's the desirable wording where I was trying to head. Certainly in terms of the blast walls, because the brick doesn't match.
I suggest we take a deferral of 5 minutes, adjournment of 5 minutes from Councillor Martin and Councillor Speed. Anybody else who wishes to indicate? Join me. Councillor Martin, would you like to propose?
Yeah, I will propose, and I believe that Mr. Harrison is going to assist me with the wording a little bit because it's.
Would you like to read what we've proposed?
Moved Wi-Fi zone C.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, councillors. I'd suggest 2 reasons for refusal, based on everything that I've heard and the comments that I made earlier about everything that I said. The proposed development would not include a mix of housing that would meet local needs and would not make efficient and effective use of land. The proposal therefore would be unacceptable and contrary to policies FAV 23 of the neighbourhood plan, local plan policies ST1 and CP3 and the MPPF. The second reason being the proposed development by virtue of the scale, density, form and arrangement of development would harm the character and appearance of the buildings at the site and the surrounding area and cause less than substantial harm to the character and appearance of the conservation area and less than substantial harm to the setting of listed buildings that is not outweighed by public benefits. Proposals therefore contrary to FAVs 10, 11 and 23. Local plan policies ST1, ST7, CP8, DM14, DM32 and DM33 and the MPPF. But I would ask the Chair for delegated authority to tweak some of those policies if officers deem appropriate. That if I've got some
policies, we can't tweak policies, can we?
No, tweak the ones that we're quoting.
Yes, delegation to clarify the policies that are being used. Okay, would somebody like to second that? Councillor Speed, thank you. All those in favour, please show. That is unanimous, thank you. Okay, next agenda item is the planning appeals. Anybody got anything they wish to say on any of the planning appeals? The lights are giving up, but no. In that case, thank you all, and no site visits. Hurrah!